Okay, that music means one thing. Pat Nevin, you're there, hello?
Hello, how you doing, Joy? You feel bad saying to people how you doing because everyone's very concerned.
Yeah.
But you look well.
I feel fine. I must say I'm 100%, but like everybody, I would be lying if I didn't say I wasn't terribly, terribly concerned at the whole situation. It is very hard to get your head around it. It's very hard to stop checking your phone. It's very hard to stop watching the news. I think it's all right to acknowledge that everyone's just a little bit frightened at the moment. And the worst part is with good cause.
Yeah, with good cause. And one of the worst things is uncertainty as well. And we spend a lot of time poring over all sorts of statistics, getting every bit of information you can get. And you go into a World Health Organization site, and you think, well, that must be it. And then you hear someone else disagreeing with them from governments, and you think, take the best advice, which is, they'll wash your hands and make sure if you're asked to isolate, you isolate, all that sort of stuff. And also keep in mind, it is still rare for people to be seriously ill with it. That's the other thing as well. But obviously, if you've got, compromised, if you're aging and, those sorts of things, it's a real concern and a real worry. I mean, last time we were talking to each other, I'd just been to a game, 60,000 people there the night before, against Liverpool playing Atletico Madrid. And nobody seemed to be bothering that much, really. There was no masks, nothing. Whereas now, suddenly it's all changed.
Isn't it amazing how much it has changed in a week? One of my vivid memories from the Liverpool Atletico game is Jurgen Klopp, quite rightly looking at the fans, trying to slap his hand and saying, put your hands away, and making a point of giving the elbow to Diego Simeone as opposed to shaking the hand. So that was Wednesday evening? It was Wednesday evening. And then Thursday morning here, our Taoiseach, our Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, he's over in Washington. He kind of shut everything down. Schools are closing on Friday. Public institutions, all buildings closing. If you can work from home, work from home. And then it was a surreal thing to watch the UK be so out of step. It felt like weeks behind. And to watch Cheltenham go ahead, especially on Thursday, was incredible. And you got 15,000 Irish people over at it. To watch it go ahead again on Friday was even more absurd. And we'll touch on the Premier League. We're almost left to handle the situation themselves because the UK government had very, very seemingly impressive, intelligent, qualified people alongside Boris Johnson saying, mass gatherings, this is an ineffective way of stopping this thing spread. We've got to, we're making various projections and they're rowing back from that now as we speak.
They're guessing, and everyone's guessing. You need to follow the best experts you possibly have, but they openly don't really know where this is going. It's a new virus. They still don't know if it's going to be a recurring one. I mean, China's on its way down just now. When they open up China, there's only a few provinces that's got it there. The rest of them might get it again. You might have a second wave. That's what happened in 1918 with the Spanish flu, which was so devastating to the planet. I mean, the planet. So that killed more people than the First World War killed. So, everyone thinks there's a right idea. It may well be that, who knows, the method that the Brits were using for a while there to get herd immunity might actually be the right thing. Get everybody, they've had it to some degree, and then it goes all the way around the world and come back again. When it comes back again, it's okay, you've got herd immunity.
Yeah.
So, there's been a lot of thoughts. I don't know what the right one is. None of us know. But we're all kind of diving in, trying to blame somebody. I'm not sure anyone's to blame for this.
No, I know. That is the other point, And with herd immunity, I think everybody, and I haven't said as much on Twitter, I think everybody understands the theory behind herd immunity. And it may well come to that. And yet, over here, certainly, I must confess, I'm terribly glad, looking at Italy, I'm terribly glad that we're worried about this initial situation and not the one 2, 3, 4 months down the line when maybe there is a second wave. And, as you said, anyone listening to this, we are not qualified experts. Do not take the conversation in that vein. We're two people reading and watching everything, and that is where our expertise ends. But I must say, I'm glad I'm on this side of the Irish Sea, in particular over the last week, I have to say. How is Scotland responding? Because interestingly, I do the Six Nations coverage over here, and the Wales-Scotland game until Friday afternoon was going ahead in Cardiff. 60,000, 70,000 people at the Principality Stadium. And I was, doing my prep work for it. And the inexplicable thing was that if that game, just by quirk of it being an even year or an odd year, if it had been fixed for Murrayfield, it would not have been going ahead because gatherings of 500 plus were banned and had been forbidden. And even that lack of consistency was very hard to get your head around. So Scotland a bit ahead of the rest of the UK, or pretty much in keeping?
Just different, just slightly different, no more than that. Having said that, I was recently in London, and by then everyone was just doing, elbow to elbow. I was across the road at a friend's house last night. Everyone was hugging and shaking hands. So not ahead. Everyone's different. Some people are taking it very, very seriously. In the cities, much more so. I live out in the country, and it feels like a lifetime away. It feels like miles away. It feels like you're hearing it in a different, country. But everyone is slowly but surely getting to it. I think we've gone past the concept of, worrying about games being cancelled and all that. Well, it's gone now. That's an eternity. You say it's a week ago. It feels like months ago, right? We've all gone. Celtic Rangers game was supposed to go on. Forget that. Nobody's arguing about it. And they aren't. There are other discussions that have to go ahead after that. They're all bigger discussions. It's going to hit. It's going to hit everyone. What the reason for the Brits trying to do it the way they were trying to do it is they know they've only got a certain amount of beds and a certain amount of ventilators. So they want it to hit more evenly so that when you get into, a difficult situation and you need a respirator, there might be one there for you. If it all hits at the same time, that's not going to happen. So I understand and I get all that. So we're all kind of running alongside that. But there's all these other discussions which seem secondary and small and insignificant. But the whole economic one is actually really, really frightening for a lot of people. And it may well affect, in fact, it will affect a lot more people in the end, the economic effect. Because if you look at any business, for individuals up to multinationals, I don't understand how they work if the world economy slows and almost stops to the level it has. I mean, we're a football show, we're a sports show. I was thinking about when I was at Motherwell. My first thing I started thinking about, okay, what's their income and expenditure? Very simple, account stuff, right? Income, gate, none. Income merchandise, gone. Income advertising, gone. Income from television money's coming in, probably gone as well. Income you would get from a cup game or whatever, gone. If you've got money coming in, say you sold a player for £1 million or £10 million and you're getting £2.5 million every year, and your budget depends on that, that other club might not be able to pay you because they're in the same position as you. As soon as you start seeing all this coming together, it just doesn't work. Really, really quickly, the whole thing for a vast majority of clubs, and by I'm talking clubs here, these are just businesses. For a vast majority, the whole thing just falls to pieces so quickly, and it's so that side, so people losing jobs, people not affording to being able to get the help they need, paying the rents, you name it. Suddenly, that side of it on its own is astonishing where it can go. Now I'm really trying really hard not to scaremonger, but there's a lot of people out there looking at it going, oh my God, we cannot allow this to continue. We can't. But what do you do to stop it? There's no obvious way to stop it. People are trying everything they can. So no one's trying to be smart, clever, try to cut corners. I don't think any government or anyone's trying to do that. They're all trying to get the best way through it. That's all they're trying just now. And it's kind of scary in that whole sense, because you worry about, yes, you're asking about the health thing. I'm not sweeping it under the carpet. It just so happens that my daughter, this is her first year ever as a doctor. She just qualified last year. She's working in a hospital. That hospital is the hub for the virus in Scotland. So everyone is good. If she's an FY1, she's going to be the first person that sees everybody. Basically, cannon fodder, getting thrown in there. As a doctor, you need to do it. And so I'm listening to what you're doing 90-hour weeks and things, which is mayhem. So I'm not dismissing the fears and the worries about that. We've all got our own ones and that sort of thing. But the wider stuff as well is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Everyone's got their own thing. Yeah. I'll tell you an interesting thing.
Hang on for a second. I don't want to make you emotional, but how do you switch off from that? That's.
We don't. We talk, and we're. Right. You take it. You're intelligent about it, and you're sensible, and you realise that. Let's be honest, the vast majority of young people, it's not a particularly bad virus. It's not one that becomes certainly not lethal. It's one that you have to deal with and you go over with. Generally, the odds are still stacked in your favour massively. So you get that on board. Just going through some stats then, how many thousand people have been killed so far in the world? Is it 6,000, right? So 17,000 people die every year from normal flu in Britain, right? So get the numbers right for the moment. It's going to get bigger, and we know that, but let's not get too panic-stricken about it. But my daughter also said to me, I hope I get this quickly. In fact, she says, I will get it quickly. So you'll get it, get over it, and get back to work and get on. And that's kind of the attitude that the vast majority of people that are medics just take. Because they can't hide from it. They're going to get it. Almost certainly they are going to get it. The vast majority of them are going to get it and just get over it. So that's how you put it back in place. And the fact that, the people I'm really worried about is, your aged aunt who's got asthma, who's got high blood pressure, who's got underlying problems. You can't get near them. That's the real fear. That's the massive fear. That's a reality that you've got. So anybody who's elderly relatives out there, you really have to keep your distance, do all the right things with them.
And given that this is a sports show, where are you in sport? I must admit, from my perspective, if there was a big football game on tomorrow night, I would have no interest. I couldn't care less. I've no zilch. Any semblance of importance that it had is gone for me for the time being, and of course it will come back. And yet I talk to other people and they miss sport acutely and they wish they had it right now. Yeah,
do you know what? Funny enough, I think for some people this is when sport comes into its own. If there was a way, and there isn't a way at the moment, but if there was a way to play games behind closed doors, but film them, and the players weren't in danger, I think that would help. I actually do. Because people are at a loss. A lot of people, sport is so important to so many people. It's so core to what you care about, what you look forward to week after week. When it's not there, you kind of notice it, or a lot of people certainly notice it. And it would help, because some of the time in these situations, you could do with your mind getting taken somewhere else.
True.
Instead of sitting in a room, especially if you're self-isolating, you'll be sitting there for 2 weeks, thinking to yourself, well, what do I do? There's only so many YouTube wormholes you can go down. Actually, you can go down billions of them, actually. But we all need something else to do, but something you care about. You can do, even if it's 90 minutes. So if there was a way, I think sometimes I'm slightly different. My attitude is, in these situations, the importance of sport actually comes back to me that maybe I ignore a little bit, how important it is to people and their lives. Because a lot of people that I've talked to looking around going, well, what do I do now? It's Saturday, I'm lost. We'll find something, and there's plenty of odd jobs you have to catch up on, but, I kind of hope as soon as it's safe enough, we start up quite quickly. And if that's behind closed doors, then I know Pep Guardiola and a number of others said they don't want to play it behind closed doors, but I'd be kind of happy for that to get on there, because there's, for every ground that's 30,000 people watching, there's a couple of million watching elsewhere. It's kind of important to them as well.
Did you see Wayne Rooney's articles yesterday in the Sunday Times?
Yeah, I thought they were quite unhelpful.
Did you?
To be honest. I've not really got a lot of time for finger pointing at the moment. And woe is me, anyone. I mean, if I've got a medic coming up to me telling me something, the fear they might have for something, fair enough. Okay, I've got you. I'm with you. But, there's certain people that are, we're all going to get it. Yes, I know what Wayne was saying, and I'm not just aiming this at Wayne, anyone was saying, we're guinea pigs or whatever. Well, we were playing a game of football there, you may or may not get it, and you may or may not get it every single place in your life. Everywhere you go, including your home, you may or may not get it. So you were out there. I was more concerned with the fans in the stadium, to be fair, because they're all close together, and it's also I have a suspicion that if a player gets ill, especially top level players are talking about that, I think they'll be able to afford to get the best of care they possibly can get. And remember, they are young, they're fit, they're healthy, they're not in the cohort that's in the most danger. And so I understood it, and I'm not saying it's completely wrong. There's a whole bunch of people are more concerned about I go out my door just now. There's plenty of people going to work today, weeks later. There's plenty of people doing it here. There's plenty of people doing it in England. Let's be honest about footballers. They're part of the community and they're as important. but let's not try and pretend they're far more important than everyone else and they deserve these massive headlines. They're not.
No, it's very true. Where I thought he made a fair enough point was the general notion that footballers might want to play behind closed doors, and the PFA didn't really say otherwise. And Rooney's point was that he would be fine. I'll be fine, he said, but I've got family, and they may not, and we all, have those people in our lives. And I thought that was a significant point, and a fair one, because actually in the conversation across Thursday, Friday, I didn't hear much from the PFA. They may well have spoken, and I just got lost in the swell of noise, but I didn't hear them, and I didn't hear from many players. And so it was kind of interesting on the Sunday to see that, Rooney talked about the Derby players. For people who didn't read the article, I know you did, but for people who didn't read it, the Derby players Thursday waiting for Boris Johnson to call everything off. This thing clearly can't go ahead. Driving and then into work on Friday, he said Boris dodged it, and driving into work Friday and just not wanting to be there. And it was only when Arteta, when that news was made public, that the decision was made, and he was saying, like, why is it just because he's a big name? What's the Leicester players had been self-isolating with good reason for a few days. This probably has a lot to do with money. So I thought that was all fair, but I understand your wider point about blaming people at this stage.
Let's go logical conclusion then. Okay, everybody who goes into work is basically being used as a guinea pig, including you. What are you doing there?
Correct.
You should be there.
Correct.
So every single person who's doing anything.
I would just say to that, I've just wiped down the whole table with anti-back. I have not come into contact with anyone. I am not going to be sweating on anyone, tussling with anyone. I'm not going to have physios giving me treatment. I'm not going to have any of that stuff. So, in so much as you can take precautions in an office, we're taking them, and those precautions are just not possible in a sport like football.
And the shame is, you're absolutely right, but that's not happening so much in the UK. And that's the point. It's not happening. So I think eventually we'll get there.
Next week you'll be there. I think the word last week was, however they can project these things, we are, or still are 2 weeks behind Italy. And for us, the next 7 days, our chief medical officer said, are vital. If we're going to flatten the curve, if we're going to stop our health service being overrun, our crucial 7 days are now. Every minute counts. Whereas the UK seem to be 3 to 4 weeks behind Italy. So come next week, I think you'll even notice the palpable shift in atmosphere, even in the country. It'll be very real.
Yeah, I certainly think it's maybe even slightly closer than that.
Maybe
for the UK. I probably say within a week.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit more than that. I mean, we heard today they're talking about 3 weeks. And it's a shame because everyone, as I say, everyone's trying to do their best. But if you shut everything down before you have things in place, if it's too early, then by the way, nobody knows if it's too early or too late. We're only guessing.
Yeah. And
everybody is only guessing. And they're trying to do the best work they can within it. The real hope is that and nobody will know the answer to this until afterwards. Nobody will know if you went too early and it had a negative effect or a positive effect or whatever, and it just lengthened the pain for everyone. Nobody actually knows. We won't know until afterwards. And that's a shame and a worry about it. The concerns are, well, there are other concerns just now, which looking ahead. What do you do going ahead? There are a million questions. You wouldn't even know where to start now.
No.
Leagues and, what you go to do with cups, what you do with competitions, what you go to do with clubs that are basically out of business. They're gone. Their debts are gone. Players who, you didn't play for that period of time, you're not going to get another contract. There's going to be lots of people going to move out. The legal ramifications and so many things are massive as well. We've got a classic thing over here, which I'm sure you've probably talked about in the shows as well before, where we're talking about Celtic in Scotland should be given a league, just like Liverpool should be given a league, and just keep the leagues the way they are, and then start again next season. This one's null and void, and then the teams at the bottom are going, what? The teams that are going to come out are going, what? And they're immediately saying what they're saying is, we're going to take this legal. We will take it legal, and they have every right to take it legal. And as soon as you do that, the game's up. It's a mess. It's a shambles. It doesn't work. So anyone who tells you they know the answer to that just now, they're lying. Just nobody has got a clue where it goes.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was the one football thing I was going to pick your brain on to a point. And it is in the context of this not being important whatsoever. And secondly, nobody really knows. But it is interesting that the Premier League clubs are going to meet on Thursday. And they're going to try and figure out what to do. So for any decision, they'll need at least 14 out of the 20 clubs to vote. Karen Brady has said, null and void, that's our only option. Like instinctively, we all look at Liverpool and I suppose Celtic as well, and we say none of us have a problem if there is some magic way to give them the league. None of us have a problem if you go into Melwood where they have all the list of trophies and they have Premier League 2019 to 20, because instinctively it's just obvious that the league is and has been theirs for some time. But the Champions League places and the relegation zone is a mess. Like Sheffield United are just 2 points behind Man United with a game in hand.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not even like everyone has played the same number of games. So there's null and void is the option. Just freeze it as we go, as we are now, even if it's completely unfair as an option. Or the third option is wait and see, and that's where it gets really tricky. Wait and see, is there a window down the line where somehow we can play at the end of the season? So if you're there, Pat Nevin, what are you voting for?
Yeah, wait and see is an absolute stick on. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. Okay, that's a decision that'll be made. There are other things, and they've got weeks, possibly even months, to look into other things. Obviously, the Euros will go. I say obviously, but they go.
Yeah.
So you're now trying to finish the whole thing by 30th of June. Probably unlikely, because that's when most of the contracts of a lot of the players go up anyway. So you've got a problem after that if they refuse to sign longer contracts. Forget all that. Say you manage to get by that as well. You still get a really, really concertina period of time. Have a look at what they do in Scotland. Everybody doesn't play each other the exact amount of times. The league splits at one point. Now, in actual fact, you could find a way that if you only have a very, very small time, if you could split the league not even once, you could actually do it twice or three times. Get the teams that roughly can get to the top, the ones that will roughly stay at the middle, the ones at the bottom, and they could have a playoff between each other. It keeps a level of the sporting integrity, but it's not perfect. Boy, it's not perfect. There are millions of problems with that as well. But if you can't logically find a way and you're trying to get the closest to sporting integrity, you might think of ideas like that. Now, I'm not putting that there as the answer. I'm just saying there are other possibilities out there that you could look at, and I think we all have to start considering looking at them. You've looked at various places. I think the US do it. If you win the league, you don't win the league. You get into the playoff to play somebody else, and then you play the playoffs, and you just let the championship get up to the. So you may well just organise a playoff between a group of teams. If that can be worked, that might be a way of doing it. And concertina, if everyone gets back in a period of time, we need to do it really, really quickly. So you cannot make that decision now, because at the moment, or in 2 weeks, you probably don't know how many weeks you've got to put that together. So it will be a way. It's an absolute stick on. It would be madness to make a decision now. I would be amazed by that, because as soon as you make a decision now, whatever it is, the writs start flying and it goes mad.
Yes. Okay, so look, we'll reconvene, I guess, in a week, and we'll have something to talk about one way or another.
We will, and it's a real sadness that there's a lot of negativity. Anyone who's listening, watching, just be safe, do all the right things. Wash your hands, and make sure you don't take any chances. It's not worth it, especially with your elderly and infirm relatives. And we're doing that here, maybe not to the level you are in Ireland, but we're beginning.
Good man. Right, talk next week. Stay safe.
See you then. Bye.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Duff and Heskey.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.
Now, welcome back. Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent joins us via Skype. How you doing?
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Grand. How are you?
Yeah, like the mandatory greeting just seems a bit different now, doesn't it? You know, and sort of how you getting on? You know,
How are you really?
Yeah, how are you really getting on? What is the real answer here? You know, but
what is
yeah,
what is the real answer? How's the form? How's the mood?
Well, like, I mean, it's early days, isn't it? You know, I mean, I'm not going to dramatize it because I work from home a lot anyway, so it's not that much of a dramatic adjustment in terms of the day-to-day, like it would be for a lot of other people who are listening and watching. So, you know, I'm not going to overplay that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's unusual without the rhythm that the sporting week brings to all of our lives. As we know, you know, Monday means something. You know, it means Monday Night Football or whatever it might be to you in your sport. And same with Tuesday, Wednesday. I guess it was the Champions League week this week, wasn't it? And you know, I'm missing my League of Ireland fix as well. So like, it's bloody strange. Of course it is.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, there's bigger things going on than this.
Correct. We just had Pat Nevin on, and he was in the main talking about the broader situation, and he was telling us, you mightn't have heard it, but he was, even his daughter is a frontline doctor in her first year qualified, and that must be a really tough situation for any family to deal with, and all the frontline medical staff are just beyond heroic at the moment. But he did, when we got on to football, briefly talk about, for instance, the financial toll on very big clubs. You know, he was going back to his time as Motherwell chairman and detailing just the accountancy of how things will evaporate overnight, effectively, like in a lot of industries. And he said football clubs, which are businesses, will go to the wall. And that is the reality of our economic situation at the moment. Irish football is incredibly vulnerable to this. So what is the latest? Can you give us in broad terms where we are, where we might hope to be over the coming weeks?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt that it is vulnerable. You would nearly hope to some degree that the fact that they're not reliant on massive TV income and sponsorship deals and whatnot, that while that is a massive weakness, in other ways, you hope that it gives them a bit more certainty about where they are standing in terms of their costs and whatnot. To explain that, what I mean is that, for example, it does appear that the Irish clubs are going to be able to benefit from this €203 per week payment to people who can't work at the moment. And for example, like for professional football,
it's gone up to over 300 now, I believe.
Oh, has it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
305, I think.
Pardon my ignorance on that, but yeah. the general concept of that payment being available would be a healthy thing for clubs here, because I mean, I'm told from speaking to people that maybe the average wage for like a full-time player in the Premier Division might be around €500 per week. So this is something that will ease the burden in terms of cost. Now, that wouldn't apply to the first division clubs or clubs where players are part-time. So people might be aware of this story today of Drogheda United suspending payments. They wouldn't be able to claim that because their employees aren't full-time. So that's why they've had to take the action that they've had. But whereas at the top end of things, that will ease the burden. Now, it doesn't replace, the loss of gate income and all the stuff that they would be banking on now that leaves them very vulnerable, as you say. But it's something. And they're not dealing with 10 grand, players on 10 grand a week or something like that. Now, the clubs that pay bigger, much more, and people will be aware, there would be some players earning good money here. There are bigger clubs where there is benefactors and people that should hopefully be able to help them out. So that's maybe a glass half full perspective, but the glass half empty is that, by all accounts, the clubs that are there, they'll be fine till the middle of April or middle of April or whatever it might be. But I don't expect football to be back by then, to be honest. So obviously beyond that, they're going to need help. They're going to need support from externally or some kind of loans or whatever solution. And that's really what's being thrashed out. There's daily task force meetings going on, and it's evolving by the day. I can give you an answer today. Sure. Tomorrow could be slightly different. But it is vulnerable. but hopefully not terminal in terms of the impact that it might be. And in many respects, I made this point briefly on Saturday that we're probably in some respects a bit fortunate that the mood around Irish football at the moment is a bit more convivial, a bit more communal. The FAI isn't run in such a way that it's completely autocratic and that there's just maybe a singular voice. For example, this time last year, the FAI wouldn't have been speaking to the players' union. Now, the players, the FAI, the clubs are all meeting together on a daily basis and trying to work through it, and that's encouraging.
One of the issues we have in every aspect of our lives right now is that as we try and look to the future and make plans, there is a difficulty because we don't know what the starting point is. There will be a day, and it feels very remote right now, but there will be a day where we're watching the news on Sky News and along the yellow ticker comes the news that a vaccine's been found and rollout is set to start. And we look forward to that, but we don't quite know when that's going to happen. So in terms of trying to schedule any kind of return to normality, it's near impossible. So that applies to football. Now, in that context, Euro 2020, we're expecting that to go tomorrow. So UEFA meet tomorrow, and there is every indication that that will be postponed to the summer of 2021. That's the word.
That seems to be the confident prediction, I guess. And UEFA are hosting a video conference tomorrow for all 55 member nations, member teams, and this is the information that's coming out beforehand. I don't hear suggestion that there's going to be alternate plans proposed. And I mean, as much as this is a meeting where UEFA, discuss it with their 55 nations, my knowledge and generally how UEFA tends to work is that they bring proposals to the table and people vote on them. And it does appear that the primary proposal being brought to the table is that one, that it will be postponed. It makes sense. It does. It makes sense in the context that now, and your initial clause is completely correct. I mean, football, who knows if it's going to return, in May. But if that's maybe a scenario, then either way, clearing that 6-week international window, which basically what a tournament is, and maybe needing that space to finish some of the winter domestic seasons, that's an option. We are fortunate to some degree that there isn't a major tournament in the summer of 2022. I mean, absolute madness that it's going to Qatar, but the fact that it's in December of that year, it gives the international calendar a bit more flexibility. And as a result, pushing things back doesn't necessarily have the domino effect that it might have at another time. So playoffs in the summer, major tournament next summer, or in fact, the playoffs could be pushed back even further, of course. If you put the Euros back to the summer of 2021, that does remove that problem and put the focus back onto domestic competitions.
This is long down the list of livelihoods, and that's, I'm sure, what the FAI's focus is right now when it comes to the League of Ireland. But if we follow that point that Euro 2020 moves to 2021, and let's say, for instance, the playoffs for Euro 2021, as we'll now have to start calling it, are in October or November or December or next January or February. From our point of view, we were always in a strange situation. We know that Stephen Kenny's contract starts August 1st or some date in that vicinity. What I don't know is if Mick McCarthy's contract says he finishes as Ireland manager on a certain date, or if it says he finishes as Ireland manager after the end of the European campaign, or if it says some kind of combination of the two, which is just as sticky really in reality. Again, it's not a massive discussion for the FAI to sort out today or tomorrow, but it certainly occurred to me and a lot of people as we realised very quickly that the Euros were going to be pushed. What is your understanding of the contract situation, of how the FAI intend to handle this even in the medium term?
I'm not 100% sure how they're going to handle it in the medium term. I don't think they can really, to be fair, get stuck into it until they find out when the playoffs are. And then you really have to look at it quite seriously. And like if the playoffs are in the summer, then like Mick McCarthy's contract, there's some, it's very clear with Stephen Kenny. Stephen Kenny's is definitely August 2020 it starts. I think McCarthy's may well be the end of July, but I'm not 100% sure. And of course, with all of these things, like in football, the end of the season contract, it can have a date or it can have You know, like it's in simple terms. However, it's worded. Like I think it's. Let's see if Kenny is written to come in at the beginning of August 2020. It's clear that there's no provision there for McCarthy's contract to go beyond the end of July 2020. So, like, I guess the problem for FAI becomes more straightforward if the playoff dates are set for the summer, because then you wait to see how the games go, and it gives you that flexibility, and you don't need really to get involved in some what could be a quite draining, demoralising negotiation.
Okay, it could be a very divisive split.
Yeah, exactly, and also potentially irrelevant if Ireland lose the playoffs. Yeah. And we all want Ireland to get through those playoffs, and we want to imagine that Ireland will be there in the tournament. But I guess at the same time, you wait to see how it goes. I mean, Northern Ireland to some degree. It's a slightly different scenario, but Michael O'Neill gone to Stoke. If things had proceeded as normal, they were almost waiting to see how the playoffs went before tackling if he remains their manager for the summer. With the logic, and I spoke to Patrick Nelson about this, you know, that, well, it's a good problem to have if we've qualified. And that's the thing. If Ireland qualified, then the mood music changes and it's a better starting point for discussions. But I don't think at the same time, like, Stephen Kenny left his job with Dundalk in November 2018 to become Ireland's senior manager. Like, the 21s was part of the deal, but he wasn't going to become 21s manager until he became senior manager. So it's a difficult one to say, well, in theory, now you don't have to wait for 3 years to take over, because if the tournament is next summer, 2021, and Ireland have qualified, I think the manager who brings them there probably has to get the opportunity to manage them at the tournament. I don't think it looks great that effectively you're pushing someone out because of an unprecedented global health crisis. Yeah. It's different if there's another football reason for it, but I really see both sides of it, and at the same, like it's like what also though as well, and see, so do you judge it on the basis of the Euros, or do you judge it on the basis of, well, actually it's more important that Stephen Kenny gets a full campaign, and that there's 6 Nations League games this autumn, and there's in theory meant to be 2 World Cup qualifiers next March. Pardon me. So you're sort of saying then, well, so does Stephen Kenny take over midway through a World Cup campaign? You sort of think that whoever's in charge at the start of the World Cup campaign needs to be there at the end of it. So that's the argument for making the change. I know Eamon Sweeney in our paper today made a very strong case or strong argument that the change should just happen now. But I think I would disagree with how he pitched it to a degree, because I think if you just did it instantaneously and saying, well, this is a great excuse to get this done, that doesn't look good. The optics of that look good. It looks like you're almost being opportunistic on the back of this crisis to push someone out because you don't think they're doing a good job. I don't think that would be a good way to end things with Mick McCarthy after his long relationship with Irish football either. No,
that wouldn't sit well with the Irish public, as much as we all like Stephen Kenny.
I don't think so.
But I think Mick McCarthy's captained the country. The Boys in Green documentary going out as we speak, that would be a shoddy way to treat him, and nobody would feel good about that. No, they wouldn't. But I do think that the pragmatic thing to do is to wait until the playoff date is fixed, and but no, I agree. I'm sorry to interrupt. Like we don't actually know what the knock-on effect will be for World Cup qualifiers. Like, maybe everything is really on pause, and Mick and Ireland play a qualifier in March for the Euros next year, and World Cup qualification only starts post Euro 2021. I mean, I presume we all agree we can't have a situation where Stephen Kenny is coming in 1 month to do the World Cup qualifiers, and then Mick is coming in the following month to do the Euros, and that's unfair on the players. That just can't work. I guess that's your starting point, that you can't both be manager in the same period for the consecutive games. So we have to work back from that and find a solution that everyone's happy with. But look, even we in the media have a duty. Like, this shouldn't become divisive. It's too serious. It's too big for that. Like, there should actually be a certain sympathy for Mick, for Stephen Kenny, for the FAI, that this is just incredibly unprecedented and unfortunate. And let's try and find a way that doesn't split Irish football or fracture things further.
Yeah.
That should also be the starting point, I think.
I agree, and I do agree. And listen, but at the same time, it's obviously I've had countless people, sort of readers and people that are interested in it, so they want us to talk about it and they want us to know what it means.
Sure.
But I do agree with you. Like I think that from every side there has to be a mature response to this and accept that this is not something that's come about because of some footballing quirk, whatever about your view of the succession plan and the flaws of it. And yeah, to be honest, it would be fantastic if the World Cup qualifiers were pushed back to start in September 2021. And that makes it a bit more straightforward.
Well, I think if that happens, then the argument is, you made the point, it's tough for Stephen Kenny to have to wait however many years. But then the argument would be, it is tough, yeah. But you know what? Look around. This situation has become incredibly tough for everyone. And maybe Mick McCarthy will say, well, it's held up a year in my life too. But I would hope that might happen, because that would save a really tricky decision, so that the Euros are clean and independent of the World Cup qualifiers, which then start afterwards. Stephen Kenny gets in. And look, this whole thing is a mess and really unfair on everyone. But at least it would save a tricky decision. But I don't know. It depends what's going on in club football at the time. It depends where we are with Qatar, with a million different things. It's just too hard to project. But I guess in the short term, I was curious to know if we knew the wording of the contract. But then again, maybe it won't go down that route. I don't suspect anyone wants to get overly legal about this. No,
I don't think that would play well with the public either. And that is the thing. Like, there's the danger of wasting unnecessary expending unnecessary energy, getting bogged down in the whole thing. And listen, I'm not going to be hypocritical about it. I'm going to go to press conferences and probably ask questions about it. So like that will happen.
Sure.
But I think the broader picture here is that we don't know if Ireland are even going to qualify for the tournament. And it's a bit like at the start of this process, people talking about, well, what happens if we get to the semi-finals of the Euros and whatnot? And like,
and again, Dan, I put it to you: what happens if we do win Euro 2021?
Yeah, exactly. Like this is something. Maybe that kind of daydreaming is what we need to do to get us through this at this moment in time. If that's the biggest problem we face, if the prospect of Ireland qualifying for a Euros was the biggest problem we were facing right now, we'd be in a great place. But like as I said, there's the broader health issue which overrides it, but there's also people working in football here, that are worrying about their futures week to week. And, this is the other thing as well. I mean, you talk about the sensitivity of managers and we can't do that to them and to this or whatever. And listen, they all sign deals and they're entitled to get what they're getting because that was the deal that was done. But we already know that Mick McCarthy is going to leave with £1 million either way. And some people would look at that and say, well, this isn't really, the biggest diplomatic problem that is going to be faced right now. So,
yes.
Everyone involved can maybe get over what it might entail if it does involve a slightly more difficult decision.
Yes. Just if anyone has turned on the radio and thinks we are agonising over this as if it is the biggest issue in the world right now, we preface this conversation by saying none of this ultimately is all that important, especially right now. On that note, Dan, I'll be talking to you one way or another. Take care.
Talk to you, Joe. Take care.
Football on Off the Ball
with Paddy Power, the greatest football partnership since Jeff and Heskey.